Speaking of launches, let's go ahead and march through what the launch timeline looks like for this mission. Of course, this is a little bit different than your standard Starlink fare that we're used to seeing as the most frequent Falcon payloads on board. This, of course, Eutelsat 36D satellite heading a little bit of different direction, heading to geostationary orbit. So let's walk through the timeline here. Liftoff, again, targeting 5:52 p.m. Eastern, 21:52 UTC. Following that, about a minute 14 seconds after liftoff, the vehicle will pass through max Q, or the point of greatest aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle. It's followed up at T plus 2 minutes and 30 seconds with first stage main engine cutoff, or MECO. That's followed in quick succession by stage separation, and then the second stage engine ignition, or SDS-1, at T plus 2 minutes and 42 seconds. The payload fairings will jettison just under 3.5 minutes into flight, exposing the satellite to the vacuum of space for the first time. Then at T plus 6 minutes and 18 seconds, the first stage entry burn will begin, that burn lasting 25 seconds. A little bit of a different order here again, because this is a geostationary launch. Then we'll come up to second stage engine cutoff, or SECO-1, at about 8 minutes and 7 seconds into flight. The first stage landing burn begins at T plus 8 minutes and 12 seconds, with a landing on the drone ship Just Read the Instructions coming up at T plus 8 minutes and 36 seconds. The Merlin vacuum engine will reignite for a 61-second burn. Minute 1 second. Starts at T plus 26 minutes and 45 seconds, setting up for the deployment of the Eutelsat 36D satellite at T plus 33 minutes and 57 seconds. Unclear at this point in time if SpaceX will continue on with onboard camera views of the Eutelsat satellite through satellite deployment. Assuming that they do, because this is a customer mission, we'll of course stay with you until satellite deployment is confirmed. If they do happen to pull away, then we will wrap up our coverage shortly thereafter. But hopefully, we'll continue to have continued views until that satellite begins its own solar journey. Go ahead and talk about the booster history of this one. This is tail number 1076, going for its 12th flight today. And while we still have time, let's run through that history, which began back on November 26th of 2022. The launch from this pad that you see here on your screen, 39A. This was Commercial Resupply Services mission number 26, or CRS-26, sending a Cargo Dragon spacecraft up to the International Space Station with more than 7,700 pounds of cargo and science in tow. Second launch of this booster was on January 10th of 23. That was the OneWeb Flight 16 mission, second of 3 dedicated launches of OneWeb's satellites for its internet constellation. Of course, after Russia invaded Ukraine, OneWeb lost the Soyuz rocket as a launch vehicle. It then bought 3 flights from SpaceX and 2 from India to launch its remaining satellites. The third launch came on February 27th, when this booster launched the first batch of Starlink V2 mini satellites. That was the Starlink 6-1 mission. It was followed up on April 7th, when the booster supported the Eutelsat 40E launch. This communication satellite also included a hosted NASA payload called the Tropospheric Emissions Monitoring of Pollution. I know it's a mouthful, which is why you can just think of it as TEMPO. It's a UV visible spectrometer that monitors air pollutants hourly across North America. It can also measure things like ozone, sulfur dioxide, and formaldehyde during the day. At night, it can measure light pollution. Launches 5 through 8 on this booster were Starlink missions. Those were 6-3 on May 19th, 6-6 on July 24th, 6-14 on September 9th, and 6-21 on October 5th. The 9th launch carried the O3B mPower 5 and 6 satellites up to medium Earth orbit on behalf of Luxembourg-based company SES. The 10th launch was the Ovzon 3 satellite on behalf of Ovzon. That mission lifting off on January 3rd, 2024. And most recently, batch of 23 Starlink satellites on launch number 11. That was the Starlink 6-40 mission, which lifted off from Slick 40 on Leap Day, February 29th. Which brings us, of course, to today, which in 10 minutes and 10 seconds, we will see the launch of this mission. T-minus 9 minutes, 16 seconds and counting. Taking a look from the view of Pete Karstens is the payload fairings that encapsulate the Eutelsat 36D satellite that'll be heading up to geostationary orbit. Again, this satellite will be replacing the Eutelsat 36B satellite in the 36-degree east position. Less than 2 minutes away from the engine chill-down sequence beginning. They will use a little bit of liquid oxygen to protect the engines from the risk of thermal shock and damage during the startup sequence. This is an image from SpaceX's feed showing those 9 Merlin 1D engines I was just talking about. This is a view of the drone ship where they will receive this first stage booster. This is just read the instructions staged in the Atlantic. Taking a look at our live chat real quick. I want to welcome newest channel member Mike G joining us at the pad leader level. Really appreciate that, Mike. Thank you for your support. Thanks to Marcus Gallegos for gifting 5 Spacelight Now memberships and a $5 super chat saying he's checking in from Hanceville. Fabulous to see Hanceville here in the house tonight. Mike G also supporting with a $2 super chat. And Charlie Anderson with a $10 super chat. Thank you to both Charlie and Mike. The engine chill down sequence is now underway here on the Falcon 9 rocket. As we're now closing in on the last 6 minutes of the count. Want to pop over this view as SpaceX is going through this video from Eutelsat showing a little bit more behind the scenes of the development and testing of this particular spacecraft. So it's a nice visual representation of what we were talking about earlier on. Satellite about the size of a small truck, as I mentioned. about 4 meters by 4 meters by 5 meters. You see the solar panels going through their test campaign. And there's the Airbus Beluga XL spacecraft or aircraft that I mentioned, taking off from Toulouse and heading over to Florida, bringing that spacecraft with it. Coming out on the final 5 minutes of the count. I want to thank the nearly 27,000 of you who are joining us this afternoon. Have word from SpaceX that both the Falcon 9 rocket and the spacecraft on board are both in good health, which is excellent news to hear. We also hear that weather is green for today, which means favorable conditions, and there are no weather constraints to launch right now, which are all excellent signs. Coming up on the strong back retract sequence, which should begin right about now. The clamp arms underneath the payload fairings will open up, and the transporter erector will recline about 1.5 degrees away from the vehicle. Shot again from our friend Pete Carsons with Max Q Productions. We'll see the clamp arms opening up, and the transport erector will lean back. Just a second here. Strong back retract sequence in full swing. Before we go ahead and see hopefully a liftoff in the next 3 minutes and some change, let's run through the trajectory real quick. This Falcon 9 rocket is set to lift off again from Historic Launch Complex 39A here at NASA's Kennedy Space Center. It's heading to geostationary orbit, so it'll fly in an easterly direction away from the pad. The drone ship just read the instructions, ready to receive that first stage booster. We do have confirmation of LOX load complete on the Falcon 9 first stage, which is good. Just second stage loading is left to wrap up. SpaceX has 2 recovery vessels used to scoop up the fairing halves. For this mission, they're going to be using Bob. Coming up on the last 2 minutes before flight here. Promise we'll come back to those with your support in the live chat, but want to thank the more than 33,000 of you who are watching with us live. If you could hit the like button just before we get going to allow more folks to find this live coverage, that would be fabulous and much appreciated. And we do have confirmation of Stage 2 LOX load complete. The Falcon 9 is fully fueled with 1 million pounds of propellant. Coming up in the last minute of the count here, we do have word of ground gas closeouts, which is the venting that you're seeing here on your screen. We should also be hearing the SpaceX launch director give their go for launch in just a few seconds. We'll relay that to you as we hear it. The Falcon 9 is in startup. Coming up at 40 seconds now. And we do have word that we are go for launch. Less than 30 seconds now to the planned liftoff of what could be the first of 3 Falcon 9 rockets to launch. Well, 2 in Florida, 1 in California. Now less than 20 seconds to go. 15 seconds. In 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Engine ignition and liftoff. Liftoff of the Falcon 9 rocket on the Eutelsat 36D mission. Falcon 9 has cleared the tower. Soaring past the American flag at the press site, this Falcon 9 is taking flight on a beautiful, sunny afternoon in Florida. Let's listen to the roar of those 9 Merlin engines. Just a beautiful liftoff against a striking blue sky here in Florida. Coming up on a minute into flight. Now more than 50 seconds into flight. Merlin engines will be throttling down as the vehicle approaches max Q, or the point of greatest aerodynamic pressure. Falcon 9 is now supersonic, or traveling faster than the speed of sound. Approaching max Q. There's a call out for max Q. Coming into a little more than a minute and a half into flight. A few events are going to be coming up in rapid succession. First stage managed cutoff will happen in 50 seconds or less. That'll be followed by stage separation, about 2 minutes and 34 seconds. And then second stage engine start, SES-1, at T plus 2 minutes and 42 seconds. That'll set up for a fairing deployment at just before 3.5 minutes into flight. Some great views here. This from our tracking camera, I believe. About 15 seconds till MECO. There you see MECO. Stage separation. And Merlin engine start. And some views here from the Falcon 9's onboard cameras, and a gorgeous view of the Sunshine State and of that first stage as it drifts away. A really nice reflection on the Gulf, and you can really clearly see the Indian River Lagoon here in the shot, and the Cape as well. Those hypersonic grid fins on the Falcon 9 first stage deploying there, you can see it from the onboard camera. Those little puffs of bursts you see there are the cold gas thrusters. The fairings should have deployed just a couple seconds ago. You could see those there at the center of your screen, actually. Those objects that are glinting away from the Falcon 9 second stage, those are the 3 dots there on the left-hand side. The top dot is the fairing half. The middle dot is the second stage engine. The bottom dot is another fairing half. On the right-hand side, you can see the Falcon 9 first stage booster as it is making its way down toward the drone ship. Just read the instructions, stationed down in the Atlantic Ocean. Some great tracking work from our team here in Florida. Coming up at T plus 6 minutes and 18 seconds will be the first stage entry burn. So far, everything has gone nominally with this mission. It's some fantastic views from both our on-ground tracking cameras as well as the onboard views. See there the Merlin vacuum engine from the second stage onboard cameras. SpaceX will toggle the view from one side of the vehicle to the other to make sure that there's an even burn on this engine on all sides. Vehicle is on a nominal trajectory as the Falcon 9 second stage is cruising towards a geosynchronous, transfer orbit. Now about 5.5 minutes into flight. Our teams on the ground are poised and hoping to be able to catch the... Actually, may not be able to see the entry burn here just because of how far out the first stage is and its angle. You can see the speedometer is still ticking up, and in just a few seconds it will really drop down quite aggressively once the entry burn begins, essentially slamming on the brakes. And there you see the start of that entry burn, and you can watch the speedometer just plummet. There's that end of the stage 1 entry burn. A little more than 7 minutes into flight now. Now coming up, the next event we'll see is the second stage engine cutoff, or SECO 1, in less than a minute at T plus 8 minutes and 7 seconds. That'll be followed by the start of the first stage landing burn at T plus 8 minutes and 12 seconds. This booster that you see there on the left-hand side of your screen, again, making its 12th flight today. A good liftoff. We're standing by to see if it'll make a good landing. You hear a call that stage 1 is transonic, traveling below the speed of sound. Now a little more than 8 minutes into flight in real time. The time you're seeing there at the bottom of your screen from SpaceX on a slight delay from this feed. You can see a little wiggle from those hypersonic grid fins, providing some stability and steering for the vehicle. And there's the start of the landing burn. You can see the drone ship coming into view. Should see on-camera view or onboard views on the drone ship on the right-hand side of your screen. Oh, they're just taking that full screen. All right. The landing legs are out. And a little hop there, but a good first stage landing on the drone ship. Just read the instructions. This was the 289th time a booster has landed. You could see the Eutelsat 36D satellite exposed to the vacuum of space, getting ready to deploy here at T plus 33 minutes and 57 seconds. Before we get to that point, though, we will see another burn of the second stage engine that's coming up at T plus 26 minutes and 45 seconds. That burn, again, will last 1 minute and 1 second. That'll set up for the deployment of the satellite, again, at T plus 33 minutes and 57 seconds. Fortunately, SpaceX has said that they are going to stick with these views and with their coverage until spacecraft deployment, so we're going to stay with you as well. This gives us a little bit of time and breathing room to pop back over to the live chat. Thanks some folks for their support as we get ready to watch the deployment of this satellite there. Want to thank Brent Raby for $5 super chat. Thank you so much, Brent. Channel member Callistia Lee with a very generous $20 super chat. Thank you so much, Callistia, who says, show your support for this live stream by clicking the like button. It's free and easy to do. Absolutely, and would be very much appreciated. Thanks to channel member SG as well. Good to see you again this evening. Thanks for the super chat. Don Sullivan with a $10 super chat. Thank you so much, Don, who says, thanks for your great commentary. Well, thank you for your support of our coverage this evening, Don. Michael Marquez with a $2 super chat saying, greetings from sunny Estero, Florida. Let's go. And to go, indeed, we did. Callistia Lee back again with another $20 super chat saying, beautiful job as always. Thanks to Will, the mods, and all Spaceflight Now for the best coverage. We appreciate all you do. We certainly appreciate you, Callistia, for supporting us in all we do here. So the Tiger with a $2 super chat saying, super good launch for Easter Eve. Happy Easter. And Janine Delasera with a super chat as well. Thank you, Janine. And as we cruise on watching this telemetry view from SpaceX, worth noting that this was in fact the 30th launch for SpaceX, hitting on the 30th day of the third month. And potentially the first of 3 launches that we have on tap for tonight. And of course, as we continue to track the progress of the Eutelsat 36D deployment, also gearing up for our second launch of the day that's coming up at 9:02 p.m. Eastern over at Pad 40, Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. You see the rocket is upright and ready to support this mission. This particular Falcon 9 rocket, this is tail number 1067 in the SpaceX fleet, preparing to launch for an 18th time. And it'll be its 14th flight from this particular launch pad. Its other 4 missions lifted off from the one that we just saw launch from, Pad 39A. Taking a peek back at the live chat, want to thank William Schubarg for a $2 super chat. Thank you so much, William, and a great name. William says, great job as always from Shelby County, or from Shelby, North Carolina. DT Rot with a $5 super chat. Thank you, DT. Wishing everyone a happy Easter and saying, go SpaceX 30th launch. Yep, number 30 in 2024. Clark Ochikubo with a $5 super chat. Thank you so much, Clark. Who says, thanks for the great coverage and commentary. You're very welcome, and thanks for your support. Jenk330 with a $5 Canadian super chat, saying from one Rocketeer to another, swell job, SpaceX. Looking forward to Starship Flight 4. And yes, SpaceX has been making notable progress towards that fourth integrated flight test of its Starship rocket down there in near Boca Chica Beach in southern Texas. Of course, we don't know exactly when it will launch, but SpaceX did conduct a full 6 Raptor static fire test of Ship 29, as well as a single Raptor engine burn test there at the pad in the past about a week or so. SpaceX founder Elon Musk stated that the goal for this mission, as was, of course, one goal for the last time, but one that they were not able to accomplish, but they hope to be able to complete re-entry of the ship upper stage without losing any of the protective heat shielding tiles. So we'll see if they're able to go through that process without those all-important tiles falling off. Currently at T plus 16 minutes, 57 seconds in real time, 16:49 on the SpaceX feed. As we continue to wait for the next second burn before satellite deployment, do want to give you an opportunity to show you a replay of the launch. This coming from our Adam Bernstein. Let's go ahead and take a look back. This is, again, a replay of the launch of the Eutelsat 36D mission as we await the satellite deployment. Again, just a beautiful liftoff here of the Falcon 9 rocket at Launch Complex 39A. This view from Adam's tracking camera here at the press site. Pretty by the books launch for SpaceX. This is, of course, 30th time they've launched a Falcon 9 rocket this year. Their 315th Falcon 9 to date. A little bit of shock collar there. And a nice little smoke ring as the Falcon 9 was punching through a thin cloud there, making its presence known as it climbed up into the sunny Florida skies. As we continue to let this launch replay of the Eutelsat 36D mission roll on, again from our Adam Bernstein here. Want to thank some folks for their support this afternoon. Our thanks to Lee Beretta for a $2 super chat saying thanks for the commentary. You're very welcome, Lee, and thanks for your support. I believe this is right before MECO or main engine cutoff here. Cruising right up to it. Thanks also to Wilson Clan for a $5 super chat. Thank you, Wilson. Channel member CL Sports Picks has been a member for 4 months at the mission specialist level. Really appreciate that, CL. CL says great launch, great coverage as usual. Channel member clock is, so the burn will start in about 20 seconds. It will last just a hair over a minute. So far, the vehicle has followed a nominal flight trajectory on this mission. Of course, you saw a good landing on the drone ship. Just read the instructions. We're about to see the start of that second stage burn. And we got that call out, and visually can see the start of that MVAC engine burn, SES-2, which will last just a hair over a minute here. There'll be a roughly 6-minute coast phase following this engine burn, which we are just about to come up to the end of in a few seconds. And we got the call out for MVAC shutdown. There's a view there of the Eutelsat 36D satellite. Listening for a call out for good orbit insertion. This is again another look at the Eutelsat 36D satellite, giving us an overview of that program. Again, it'll be replacing Eutelsat 36B at the 36° east orbital position, geostationary orbit, about 36,000 kilometers above the Earth's surface. It'll provide broadcast capability for customers in Africa as well as the Eurasia market, which you saw there. We're now a little less than 4 minutes away from the deployment of this satellite. I want to thank channel member Marcus Gallegos for a $5 super chat here as we await satellite deployment, asking what holds the rocket up when the strong back retracts. It's a good question. A couple different things keep it where it is. The clamp arms that are holding down the rocket that are released at liftoff are part of that equation, but also when they pressurize the vehicle, that also provides a little more sturdiness on the rocket, additionally helping to keep it in place. Thanks to Nelson Reyes, also channel member with a $10 super chat. Thank you so much, Nelson. Asking if we'll have a second live stream for the 9:02 p.m. launch, or will you keep this one up? Thanks, Spaceflight Now, for everything. We actually already have that stream up, and it will activate an hour out from launch, so right about 8 o'clock is when we will start that second stream. So feel free to go ahead, enjoy some dinner or whatever you have planned for this evening for a couple of hours, and then we'll see you right back here at 8 o'clock Eastern for the start of that broadcast. SpaceX says they do have confirmation of good orbital insertion for the Falcon 9 second stage, which is good news for this mission. We are now less than a minute away from deployment of this satellite. Deployment now less than 10 seconds away. It looks like SpaceX's connection is a little bit choppy, but there we go. Good separation, and we see visually that the Eutelsat satellite is now flying free. And we have a view here now of the other two pads that are going to be supporting launches. On the left is Vandenberg Space Force Base. On the right there was Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. Of course, you saw a lot of the clouds hanging around in Southern California, as have been noted by some of you in the live chat. So we will see if the weather actually cooperates for the Starlink 7-18 mission tonight. But of course, SpaceX is gearing up for the Starlink 6-45 mission over at Pad 40, which of course we will have our own dedicated live coverage on a separate stream. Just going to go ahead and bring up a view of that pad, give you one last look at that rocket before we peel away from our coverage here tonight, if we can. You see there are dual view, one empty pad, one pad with a rocket yet to depart from Space Launch Complex 40. Before we close it out, want to give you a little bit of a look at some of our launch photography from our team out here as well. This first shot, a liftoff view of the Falcon 9 rocket on the Eutelsat 36D mission from our own Adam Bernstein here. Falcon 9 soaring beneath Old Glory. This one from Michael Caine here, as well as this lovely streak shot from Michael as well. A light show streaking off into the skies above Florida's Space Coast. With that, we're going to go ahead and wrap up as we always do with a look at our mission stats as they currently stand. This was the 12th flight of this particular Falcon 9 first stage booster, tail number 1066.